Are we doing intros now?
No.
Do your comment.
Hi, I'm Doreen Lorenzo. So you're covered. Now you do me.
Okay.
I'm Michael Baker, and I run until my legs fall off, and sometimes I lose arms and fingers. But it's okay because I finish the race, and that's all that matters. And we're both Rebecca McInroy.
Welcome to Creativity is the Job of the Future, where we talk to people who are harnessing the power of creativity to overcome major challenges. On this episode, we take a look back at some of the moments from our first season that captivated us, blew our minds, and brought us to tears.
So, season 1, we did it.
Season 1.
I didn't know when we started this what it would be. Like I was, right? We just said, well, let's do this thing. What's it going to be? And I feel like it's been this almost snowball, like this of momentum that's happened as a result of it.
Yeah.
That was what was so exciting about this is, oh, this would be a fun thing to do. Let's try this. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I learned so much each episode. I was like, oh my God, I want that. That's great.
There were so many things that felt like they were connecting the dots with each of the interviews. So like Free, everything about her life and all of those really interesting ways that her life experiences fed into the creative person that she was.
Yeah, that's a really good point because she was the first person we had.
She'd done so many interesting things. She had this amazing journey. She had this way of kind of capturing these ideas that, to me felt really compelling.
She kind of just laid the groundwork of how everybody else came. Like her quote about leaders of tomorrow need to be Swiss Army knives. You're like, you just can't know one thing and you just can't be good at one thing.
Leaders of tomorrow are going to be humble enough in understanding what their skills and strengths are, but also curious and receptive and open to the things around them to be able to move them forward together, not as a solo. And that is leadership. And certainly the leaders of tomorrow are going to need to be Swiss Army knives in being able to adapt and take on different kinds of input and decision-making, not just an authoritarian, one-sided vision.
I don't know. I found that to be revolutionary.
Yeah, because it changes that idea that only the experts can come in and do what needs to be done from one angle. That there's so much uncharted territory that we're going to have to build on all of our resources in order to confront the challenges that are ahead.
What about her comment, though, one I really love, because it's funny, but it's true. It's like, without this creative thinking, the zombie apocalypse is going to happen. You think about the bots coming to get you, and you're like, well, you're right. I mean, it's funny, but it's true. As we go towards this future, where we now know that these critical thinking skills are what's really needed in the market, what do we do? What do you see the path forward is, and what do you see the outcome both ways, if we do it and if we don't do it?
The zombie apocalypse happens. And I don't mean a Blumhouse feature. I mean the zombie apocalypse that is inevitably associated with idiocracy and cattle herd thinking.
I love that. I think
which was really cool because it came full circle with Baratunde.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that what you're just going to say?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. People turning into machines, right? That whole concern. So,
From Free, my favorite line was, "Your future you depends upon today's you to keep the promises you made yesterday," which I really love. That dedication, I think, is sometimes overlooked in the creative process.
Yeah.
That it actually takes a lot of hard work and dedication and follow through. Those things really matter. And in her piece, and also in Sky and Troy, like that really came through for me. And Ed, hello.
Obviously with Ed.
Obviously Ed.
Come on, are we going to talk about it?
Let's talk about Ed.
Let's talk about our favorite quote, which I use this quote all the time.
I've broken my hand at one of my races. I've degloved a toe. But one of the jokes I have, and people that have done events with me have heard me say that, I'm like, that's a Monday problem. I'll deal with that on Monday. Right now, it's about getting to the end of the race.
It's a Monday problem.
It's a Monday problem. Oh my God. wow. Honestly, I never put the concept of being creative with, ultra marathon, long distance running until he started telling those stories.
Yeah.
And then you're just, and you have to be creative on the fly.
Yeah.
Like there's no time. And of course, I would have left at any given moment and went crying. And he just kept doing it with these crazy solutions he had.
Yeah.
Well, the other part of that, which I think is really interesting, is that he runs by himself, self-supported, because it gives him access to that problem-solving intuition and creativity that he doesn't give to other people to help him with.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that, but that's a really good point. And I think for someone like Ed, it's so personal, right? As opposed to creating a product or service, which has to go out there. So different ways of using creativity and how you think about it. But it's having a lot of faith in himself that he's going to solve these problems.
Yeah.
He also, at one point, talked about having a plan and expecting that to change.
I do put together a plan, but definitely one of the biggest things I learned is like your plan doesn't matter. Like have the plan, be prepared for it to change.
There's something in that to me which is really interesting, especially with what he does, because there are so many unknowns about those changes. So even if he made 3 backup plans, none of those may apply. So he has to be creatively prepared for that change to occur, which means that he has to be ready for a wide range, of possibilities and options. And to me, that is like the essence of why creativity matters.
Yeah.
It is this idea of being prepared for this unknown, right? It's not like make 3 plans, use your backup when you need it. It is make a plan, expect it to change, and then use your creative problem solving to figure out how to move forward.
Yeah.
I'm thinking now I'm going to our next guest that we had because it was just totally different, but yet using creativity in the STEM world, the science world, the data world, and why that was so important. And that was Paul. And he had to figure out how to tell this complicated story in ways that people would understand. Mm-hmm. And the fact that that exists, to me, was really important.
Yeah. He had to communicate to people who understood the science. So in order to get these grants, he had to communicate the scientific relevance to people who also understood the scientific relevance. But the reason why they got finally approved was because of that heart and passion and the story that he brought to it.
The other thing we talk about is the what if and the what could be. And these PIs, they've lived in that what is, I know the challenge, I know what I could do to make it better, and I know what could be. And they want to jump across that chasm, but what we need to know is what's in between there. That journey of what you went through to really get this idea of the what could be out there and tapping into that human story that's behind it all.
We all the time are thinking with our bodies and our brains and our hearts and our past experiences and connecting things with these stories. So like telling that story through every element of what he was doing to people who are like supposed to be evaluating on this very rational thing was really kind of mind-blowing to me as well.
Well, I love the reason for that too, right? NASA was the de facto, science outfit for space exploration forever, for decades, right? So like who else is going to apply for the grant? Like they didn't really have competition. And so this came about because real competition emerged. Mm-hmm. And so they suddenly had to do things differently, right? It wasn't just show the science and get the grant. They had to engage at a different level, which to me, I think that's also quite interesting. It sounded like he really reconnected with the individual scientists and their passion for why they were doing the work. And that story and relevance is what allowed them to change the way they were presenting the information and ultimately succeed.
Do you remember when he described his definition of ROI?
Yes.
I just ran into somebody the other day who was in one of our workshops and just walked up to me and put out his hand and said, "Hey, Paul, I need to thank you." And I was like, "For what?" And he goes, "Oh, I was in one of your workshops recently and I just got an award for a small RNA proposal." And he goes, "And it was definitely because I changed the way I told my story. Instead of return on investment, it's return on inspiration. That's our ROI."
And that's true, right? If you can get people's emotions moving, even if it's science, even if you're trying to win those grants that nobody else is, you thought you always done, that was really smart, because that is how it gets done. So I really like that. I really liked how they switched that.
Well, and that, I mean, when we think about the moment that we're in now with AI and other advancing technologies, and the sort of pace of technological change and advancement is accelerating, it's much easier to solve a lot of technical problems now compared to the way it was 10 years ago. And so there really is this, it seems to me that at least that there is going to be continued need and demand for inspiration.
Creativity is not limited to people in the arts anymore. It's what you need to actually survive, no matter what you're doing.
Luna and AJ are a fantastic example of exactly that, using creativity and joy to achieve other goals. So something I keep coming back to when I reflect on this first season, we kind of had this idea of what we thought we were doing at the beginning. We were kind of positioned around this like, well, it's not just the artists, and the musicians, it's actually, there's more to it than that. We were kind of looking in one direction. But a lot of the folks we talked to were in fact, and in their own practice, continue to integrate what we would describe as like traditional creativity into their fields and practices to do other things. And that is something that seems sort of obvious now, but I feel like that was reinforced over and over and over again throughout this first season. And I feel like when I met Luna and she talked about what she does, this kind of joy-based approach to culture change, it was so incredible to hear, because it was kind of directly addressing that thing. Specifically, they were structured to engage with people in where they are, rather than assume like, oh, there's this knowledge bar we need to hit, there's this sort of cultural truth that matters right now, and we're putting all this money into it, and that's where everyone needs to be, is a very different approach. So that, that impressed me when I met her initially, and of course it was one of the reasons I thought she would be a good guest for the show. And it was incredible, obviously, to meet AJ along the way.
Yeah.
Well, the closer I can touch my joy, the closer I can touch my rage, that AJ said.
There's this false sense of happy, shiny brightness when it comes to joy. And I want to come back to, I think of joy as a depth. The closer I can touch my joy is the closer I can touch my rage.
Ooh, that hit me. And creativity really holds space for all that full spectrum of human emotion. And I think that's really important, right? Because that is how you problem solve. That's how you get through things. When you first told me about them, and I went and did some research, it kept being joy. But when they really started deconstructing why they use that term, again, joy brings out rage, or joy is depth, and just talking about that, I thought that was really impressive, because that's hard to put into play, and that's hard to do.
They're a perfect example of using creativity to solve some of these really challenging problems. And I think that owning that joy is a big part of that process, and saying no, I'm going to choose a different path. I'm going to choose a different way to be in these conversations that is not controlled by the rhetoric of either side.
It's also an incredible connector, which is another theme that I think came up over and over again with a lot of our guests, but they kind of use joy and play as a way to allow people to connect with their humanity.
Yeah.
Even the language of DEI is so stigmatized. So Joy Channel is purposely subversive and purposely inviting into saying, this is the world we are trying to build. We are trying to build a world where everyone is able to access their humanity, and be able to drive and thrive. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to be joyous, as in happy, But when we're able to connect to our full humanity, whether that's being able to grieve when you need to grieve, or allowing anger to come up, or be in a space where it's okay to be afraid, or it's okay to be different, or it's okay to be confused, that is true joy and the fullness of being oneself and the fullness of safety and belonging.
That is what they're about, right? That is one of the mechanisms that they're using, right, to create these connections where, culture change is desired. Which is
a good segue to our next guest, Sky Hilton and Troy Whittington.
Yeah,
that was really emotional for me, listening to them, and really them talking about wanting to remove as many barriers so people could see how cool it is to be creative and use it, and use that creativity as a healing process, and use that creativity to really help their journey as recovering addicts. I mean, that was a hard interview to do because they were just so passionate, but what they had been through in their lives to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't dismiss creativity as a tool for recovery, because it's a tool that I use every day.
For me, I look at living as an addict, the unknown, the future, this big unknown space where you're like, I actually don't know what challenges I'm going to have. It's like this dark abyss, and I don't know what it's going to be. And the way in which they were using creativity to confront that open space of the unknown, and to say, no, there's something you can do there. You don't have to be there alone. It's similar to Ed, really. It's like,
really,
I don't
point.
know what I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to do. But guess what? I have within me the tools needed to solve these challenges that are going to come up. Using creativity in that way to get through hard stretches of time that can be challenging, or just to know that you have that tool in your back pocket, that like when that arrives, that situation, I got it. It's like such incredible confidence.
Art isn't recognized enough in our society as a pathway for relief.
It went from this helped me, and I bet you it would be helpful to some other people, to I think we're really starting a movement here.
They are creating a space that is nurturing a whole community.
Well, I think it was so healing. Like, creativity is healing, and it was so healing for them. And it put them on a path in their journey that was really, really positive. They wanted to share it. And you know what? It goes back to play. It goes back to how we feel when we're creative. We feel good about ourselves. It's very rare that people are creative and they feel really sad about it.
Yeah.
When you've done something.
When you're making something.
Right. Whether you're baking a cake or you're doing something.
Yes.
Whatever it is, you feel good about that. They're getting people involved. They're making people co-create. They're meeting their community. They're meeting their people. That's really special.
Yeah. It was a powerful, powerful episode.
Yeah. The other thing is this idea of like practice too. You kind of said it here, Doreen. So creativity is the thing that you kind of practice and engage all the time, versus like, oh, I went and did the training and now I'm like more creative.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I took the class. Am I creative now?
Am I creative now?
Yeah, exactly. And that, I mean, again, it's sort of like almost so simple you kind of miss it, but like that orientation to using creativity in this case, or and really in all these examples, is I think really important.
Which leads us to
Grey Garman.
Wow, did we just want to keep him going for hours? Like I think we interviewed him for 3 hours because everything he said was a quote.
Yeah.
The funny thing with Gray's episode, though, I remember listening to it and just being so captivated and mesmerized, and then we finished recording and I couldn't think of anything he said, because it's like an exploration in thought constantly, just this constant kind of.
Yeah, Gray's interesting. In person, Gray is like this tour de force of amazing. I mean, honestly,
good description.
Like joy and creativity, and like he is so enthusiastic
Humanity.
About being in the room with you.
Yes.
And
yes,
I always feel like I want to be more creative when I'm around him.
Yeah.
Like he kind of inspires you to.
He does.
To just be creative and think about that, because he really does embody that concept.
creativity requires a lot of vulnerability. What's awesome about collaboration is that it's not a singular lightning strike that everyone decides on. It's a series of countless decisions. Doing the creative things is how we get to creative ideas, not vice versa. And a game is a great way to get people in the door.
That game, the game that he's talking about, Dream Up. So the game is teaching people how to think creatively about problems, which is one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. It's part of the show, right? Teaching and learning creativity. And play is one of those ways where we teach and learn creativity, which is the beautiful example of how he identified the fact that this is an important thing to learn and to teach, and then came up, iterated, reiterated. How long did it take? 3 years to make this game? 4 years to make this game?
He got this group of people together who all thought that.
Design or design thinking can feel overly structured. And we realize that as creative professionals, that's not really how great ideas come into the world. It's nice to have some structure, but the reality is we also wanted to teach people how to navigate some ambiguity, learn things a little bit differently, and break up this really linear structure that people thought was design. And so we were like, well, what better way to do that than make it a game?
You know what? I can't believe we just came back. We just came back to play again.
And play is about experimentation. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the really interesting things about games. You know, whether they're a very kind of intentional, structured experience or something that's more open-ended, is they allow us to like experiment and test and try things out into like a low-stakes domain. And that's how you start to like build that habit of like curiosity, testing, experimentation, learning from those experiments.
Another thing about play that I think is really interesting, especially right now, like we talk a lot about being able to make space to become, you know, to try on different identities, to try on different ways of being in the world. And there's those spaces, I feel, are very limited for people, especially adolescents, in terms of how they're interacting with social media and the ways in which they have to come fully formed into that world, into their worlds. And the consequences of that are pretty harsh. And this idea of play and how he's utilizing it is saying we're constantly becoming, and we're going to make space for these types of interactions. And then there's no winner or loser. We're celebrating at the very end this process.
Which leads us to
a
segue to Marion Leary. Somebody who really teaches how to take these ideas into action in nursing.
The nursing process itself, especially when you're talking about the execution of ideas, is a way to tap into creativity.
People need to understand how creative nurses are and how much creativity goes into the care of patients, the research that nurses do, the education, the whole breadth and depth of what one does as a nurse.
Honestly, the difference in nursing is, in all seriousness, they're really dealing with life or death.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about fixing broken systems, they don't have time to say, well, is this going to work or not going to work,
exactly.
Right? They have to really think fast, think on their feet, and make stuff happen. I think what I like listening to Marion talk about is, she said nurses live in problem areas. Yeah. Like that is their life. They know when they go to work, it's not going to be smooth sailing and everything's going to work right? Because you're dealing with the human condition, you're dealing with systems that aren't working. So could this lead to fixing bigger systemic problems that are in the field, which I hope it does, because I do think it's a very broken system, and I do think it's relegated to the nurses, who we know have to do the heavy lifting and all this to make things work. I just think it's so important.
In some ways, this is it's a bit of a callback, I think, maybe to Ed and also Gray. The ideas, the creative motivations, the attempts to creatively problem solve. When they confront reality, that's when things get real. And that is why this whole idea matters. And nurses seem to be often very much in that space, right? Life and death obviously is a very extreme version of that. For Ed, it's not life and death exactly. I mean, it's kind of moving, pushing.
I don't know, Michael. Some of those things he described about going blind and it's, running this. Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean.
Yeah. I found myself thinking about my own experience in Norway in the Arctic Circle at my own race, and this moment in the middle of the race where the conditions were more challenging than I expected, much more treacherous than I expected. And it was me and the elements in the environment, and there was no turning back. There was one way to go, and that was forward. And I had to not die, right? I had to get through it. I had to sort of find a way to focus and get through. And like when the trail disappeared, find a way around that giant boulder that looks like it's about to fall over and drop 100 meters into the canyon below. I still remember this feeling of creative focus in that moment where it's like, I have to find a way. I've never been in this situation before. This is more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And I have to get through. To me, it's sort of like Ed and Marion and Gray's point about reality. I feel like they all, to me, they kind of connect to that space where if you're prepared to think creatively and you end up in these situations that are extreme, it's almost automatic, right? It's almost like a muscle memory superpower thing that happens, which I would imagine nurses are in all the time.
Well, honestly, too, Sky and Troy's episode.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's life and death every day,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that is what we keep hearing. And that's what's been so interesting about doing this first season is the thread that we never knew existed was there. And everybody did something different. Everybody did something different. And kind of radically different, too. It wasn't like, oh, everybody was an artist and everybody did something different and bringing their life stories there. Okay, let's get to our final episode.
Are you going to cry?
Yeah, it was really emotional for me. It really was. It was nothing that I had expected. And I felt like interviewing everyone, like I really got to know them, too, in a way. Yeah. That was really important. And listen, I have spent my whole professional career beating this drum because I saw it. And I saw what a world without creativity does to people. Yeah. And now as we enter, the age of AI and machines and everything, it's like, that's all great, but guess what? This is even more important than it's ever been before. Yeah. And we need to be teaching people, and from babies up to grandparents, why this is, which leads us to our final guest.
Final guest.
Drum roll, please.
Mr. Baratunde.
Baratunde Thurston.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Which I think, in a way, we didn't know it when we did this, but he kind of wrapped it all up for us,
he kind of
right?
Did. Yeah.
He put it all in perspective about why this is so important. And, Michael, Rebecca, and Doreen, you weren't crazy trying to go out and tell this story.
There's like a giant planet of averageness, of meh, of slop. Creativity is required to break free of that mass.
These are tools, right? We need humanity in there. And without the humanity side of it, without the human interaction, it gets pretty boring.
And you don't want this blob of blah.
Yeah. I love that he called that out, the averageness, which is something that I feel like folks who are working with AI tools right now are aware that that's what they do if you don't get your prompts right. So calling that out in sort of like very visual way, I think is very important. But it also, to me, speaks to how critical it is. I think to your point, Doreen, that it is extra important that we engage in creativity now and humanity now, because these tools are now out there in all sorts of different ways, and they are going to just produce averageness. That's their default mode. And so we really do need to engage our humanity, our sense of play, our creativity now more than ever to ensure that we build a future that works for us. The other thing that Baratunde talked about is how do we stay connected when we have human-like experiences with our tools?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, that was really good.
Yes.
So the thing that's sort of new or different about now and current AI tools is that they are very human-like in their responses. And another theme maybe that has kind of come up again and again and again in this season is the role of humanity. What it means to be human-centered, whether you're talking about human-centered design or human-centered caregiving or whatever it's going to be, sort of human-centered ultramarathon racing for yourself, for example. But, that kind of question and the importance of really connecting with that and maintaining that connection to our humanity while using these tools and engaging creativity and doing things in the real world to make real change and move forward is the big question right now, and the real critical thing we need to be considering.
What I am sensitive to is the industrialization of creativity. And I think a big threat of automation hasn't really been like robots do everything, is that people become robots. That can happen in a physical sense with repetitive motion, but it can also happen in an intellectual sense with repetitive thought, or with an incentive structure that highly encourages us to move a certain way for the reward of the automated system.
There's a certain amount of bravery required to utilize creativity, right? We see students sometimes come in and, who would describe themselves as creative. And what that means to them is they are working on a craft, they're pursuing some sort of, quote, creative goals of some kind. They're operating in a space where they're moving toward a goal that they have chosen. And that is very different than I'm going to generate new ideas and be open to where they take me. That's a completely different orientation to take. And that is one that, there's fear of the unknown. That's a very natural response, right, for human beings to have to things. And so there is a certain amount, I think it's bravery. It's, you have to be ready to engage in that curiosity, to ask questions, to honestly explore the possibilities that you have uncovered by being creative, which Baratunde mentions at the end of his episode as well.
There's so many paradoxes or contradictions in this moment. Fear is justified, and it cannot be like the end point. It's not enough. And I think, there's so many things that we can do in this moment. There is a tendency to want to protect and preserve the thing we know. Creativity looks like this. And the definition of creativity is like, it cannot stay the same. Creativity literally dies if you just keep doing the same thing. And so this moment's going to force radical creativity. We will create new entire modes of stories and experiences that have no real precedent. We just don't know. But it's going to be creative. And I don't have any fear myself that we're going to lose creativity because of technology. We may lose jobs. We may lose social cohesion. We may lose temporarily more of our safety nets and social contract with each other. We may lose our democracy. We might. We will not lose creativity. And the application of creativity to all that loss may give us something more robust, more worthy, that serves more of us to get to that future together. That's definitely my hope, and I'm 100% certain that creativity is going to be there and is going to be a part of getting us where we actually want to go.
Big change afoot, huh?
Big change afoot.
So I just want to say this. I really had a lot of fun. This was like the most fun I've had this year. Seriously, doing this podcast
Me
was
too.
super fun.
Yeah.
And just a little hint of next season. it's just as wild. It's just as good. It's a whole different group of people that are similar.
Mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
So,
There's no shortage, right, of these types of stories, and just the breadth and depth and range, right, of people out there that are using creativity in amazing ways.
They're doing big things, making big changes, and impacting lives for the better all around the world. And harnessing this incredible power of creativity. Creativity is the Job of the Future is hosted by Doreen Lorenzo and Michael Baker and produced in Austin, Texas. For more information about the hosts, our guests, and the show, visit our website, cjfpodcast.com. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you get podcasts. For Creativity is the Job of the Future, I'm Rebecca McInroy. Thanks for listening.